Hi, friends. Andy Paul here, host of the Sales Enablement Podcast. Next up for you, we have Alice Hyman. Alice has been the VP of International Sales at a $3 billion Fortune 500 company and is now a leading sales trainer. In this session, Alice shows us how sales success is directly connected to the leader's mindset. In her session, Alice will share the questions that you need to be asking your reps that will help them close more deals faster. Now, let's get into it.
Great to be with you here today. We have a lot to talk about. There's so much going on in the world right now that's making your sales different than it's ever been before. In some cases, you've got more sales than you know what to do with, and in other cases, it's scary. Now, of course, some of you are somewhere in the middle as well. But either way, what we're going to talk about today is going to make a difference for you. If your salespeople are poorly positioned, it doesn't matter what the economy is doing, they're not going to be able to make the sale. So we're going to talk about the questions that you can ask your salespeople. And if you are the salesperson, you can ask yourself these questions so that you can close these complex deals faster. I know that's what you all want to do. So we have to figure out how to get better positioned. And I'm going to give you some ideas right now. This is not how I want any of you to feel right now. With everything that's going on, though, it's hard sometimes. We've got a lot on our minds, but just remember, this could just as easily be your customer as it is you. Everyone has emotions going on all the time, but especially now in these uncertain times with so many things going on in the economy and politically and just with humans in general. So keep in mind that when we're selling to human beings who have emotions. They have many other things going on in their lives besides the sale that you're trying to make. And they may be feeling like this the day that they have to get on a meeting with you. They may be feeling like this when they pick up the phone and you're on the other end of the line and you have no idea. So it starts with being aware of how you're feeling, so that you can get yourself in the right mindset and the right mood, the right attitude for selling. That will help you get better positioned, and being aware of how others around you are feeling. The people on your team who may be getting on that really important call with you to do a demo, the people who are going to be on the call, 2 or 3 of them might be in a great mood, 2 or 3 of them might have just been in the middle of some craziness or someone sick in their family. So really pay attention and think about yourself and the others in your world that you're going to be talking to, because selling is about emotion. And we can't get well positioned if we completely ignore the emotion and just plow ahead with our own agenda. So this is an opportunity for you to chime in. Whenever you see the little question and the hand below on the keyboard, that means it's your turn to chat in your answer. So the first question is, what are your biggest challenges with closing deals right now? What are your biggest challenges? So if you're the sales leader, what are your biggest challenges? If you're the CEO, what are your biggest challenges? And if you happen to be the salesperson listening to this, what are your biggest challenges? Please go ahead and chat those in. So while you're getting your answers in, let's just talk about what B2B sales looks like today. In B2B sales, more people now than ever participate in a buying decision. And the buying process has become more formalized as buyers seek to reduce risks. Now, this is even more evident as the economic climate changes And just recently, I was listening to some speakers in the Topo Summit, who a research firm that Gartner, a big analyst firm, just purchased. And they were talking about a new buying influence they're calling the deputy. This is a person at a large company who has been charged with the change management, the pivots, the shifting. So this person is one of the senior executives at the company, and they are looking out over all of the changes that are happening. And so now your buying committee also has to answer to this person. So keep in mind that things are really shifting and changing, and so we have to shift and change with them as sellers. Now, before we get into exactly how you're going to get better positioned for the complex sale, I want to quickly talk about what is a complex sale. Now, it's going to be a little bit different for every company. It really does depend on what you're selling and who you're selling it to, but some of these will ring true for you at your company. A complex sale has a long sales cycle. And that's because of many of the other factors that I'm going to reveal to you in a minute. For some of you, this could be 3 months, 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. I've worked with some companies that have longer sales cycles than that. So whatever the length of your sales cycle is, that is going to add complexity to getting a deal closed. And you need to know what that is. Whatever it was in the past, I can guarantee you it's going to change. So know your sales cycle, be watching for the changes in your sales cycle because it is a complexity. High dollar stakes, and again, different for every company. For some of you, a really big deal might be 10 or 20,000. And for others of you, a really big deal could be 100,000, 500,000. And for some of you, it's in the millions. So whatever your highest dollar stakes deals are, those will be more complex. Multiple buying influences, we already mentioned this. There's so many people that are going to be involved in making the decision. And half the time, you're not ever going to even know who they are. And a good portion of the time, even when you do identify who they are, you don't get to talk to them. So you have to deal with the people on the buying committee that you have, met and worked with them that have been assigned. But it is always your job to uncover all of these buying influences and be aware of them, even if you don't get to talk to them directly. And of course, this makes it complex. Perceived risk, higher than ever. And if you're a small company selling to a big company, there's a lot of risk there because you, as a small company, could go out of business and this big company just made a huge purchase from you. They want to know how stable you are, especially in this economy. So think about the risk you're asking someone to take when they choose to purchase from you, and do everything you can to minimize those risks, because this perceived risk makes closing the deal very complex. Now, of course, some of you are selling very technical things. So you're going to have technical or integration complexities. You're going to have user adoption issues. You're going to have engagement issues. So with whatever you're selling, if you have these technical and integration complexities, that's going to change your sales cycle. It's going to change the different types of buying influences you need to talk to, and again, making it more complex. Now, here's one that most people never think of. Your own team is making your sale more complex. I don't know about you, but I've seen companies where deals get almost completely closed and then paperwork is sitting in legal, waiting and waiting and waiting for someone to take a look at it. And meanwhile, the buyers are trying to talk to the sellers and figure out what's going on, and the sellers are yelling at the leaders, hey, what's going on? We've got to get this deal closed. They're ready to buy. And legal's hanging on the paper. I don't want to blame legal for anything. I love legal, but There are other places in your company that could be holding you up. Maybe things are out of stock right now. If you're one of those companies that is really thriving and people are buying your product like crazy, your own team can't provide fast enough. So people also on your own team can't agree on things. Maybe a volume discount, and you're having to talk internally about that, and many people are getting involved. So don't forget that your own team sometimes lengthens your sales cycle and makes the sale more complex. And then, of course, there's other things that are unique to your own company. So it's your turn again to chat in your answers. What makes it challenging at your company? Is it the long sales cycle? Is it the multiple buying influences? Is it the high dollar stakes? Is it your own company? Is it the perceived risk of, if you're a small company, these really big companies don't know whether they can really trust that you're going to stay in business? What are the things make it challenging at your company? All right, get those chatted in. And think about this. What if your salespeople were positioned to close more of these complex deals? What would that mean? You'd obviously have a higher close ratio, more dollars through the door, more happy customers. Because when salespeople are well positioned, that means they know all of the people, they know all of the issues and concerns, they've built solid relationships that move right in through the onboarding and into the retention and growth of that customer. So most typical sales calls, afterwards, the leader might talk to the salesperson and ask them, how did that sales call go? Right? So you've got this big complex deal, you're having conversations, you've just finished a really important conversation, maybe some of your team members on it, and the sales leader says, hey, how did that go? And your salesperson says back to you, oh, it was great. They loved us. The call went really great. What do you now know about that sales call? Virtually nothing. The salespeople, of course, they're very optimistic and upbeat, and it did go great, but I don't know what great means. And that doesn't help me coach my salesperson to advance the deal. So I need to get much more specific. So now I'm going to share with all the sales leaders out there how your coaching leads to closing more of these complex deals. Now, again, if you're a salesperson that's listening, you can coach yourself, or you can ask a peer to coach you, or of course you can give these ideas to the sales leader. If you're the CEO who also happens to be running sales, which happens in many cases with smaller companies as they grow, then these are the questions that you need to be asking. Now, this is not an all-inclusive list, but if you are asking these questions and the salespeople can answer them, the sale is advancing. If they cannot answer them, the sale is not advancing. You're going to have it stuck somewhere in the pipeline. So if you're worried that your sales reps are poorly positioned, let's ask these questions. What did you do to prepare for the sales call? Now, I'm not asking you to micromanage people. I want an answer. What did you do to prepare? Salespeople are great at winging it. Hey, I'm a salesperson. I'm good at winging it too. But we all know that when we prepare for important sales calls, with especially these large complex deals, we are really going to do so much better and have a better result. What was your objective for the call? Did they have one? Was it clear? Did they state it clearly? Did the customer agree? Really important. Now, I don't want you madly scrambling to try to write all of these down, because there's a handout that you can download that has all of these questions and more. So be sure and download that. Who did you meet with? Who wasn't there that needed to be? So many times our salespeople have meetings with one, two, or maybe three people, but the key person isn't there, or several of the key people are not there. If they're not there, that's okay in some cases, but at least make sure your salespeople are aware of it and can tell you, well, here's who should have been there that wasn't. Where are they in the buying process? What other solutions are they considering? What value and insight did you provide as a salesperson? Today, buyers are really well educated on their choices. They can do it in-house. They can do nothing, of course. They can buy from your competitors. If you are not bringing value and insight, they don't need you. So salespeople, keep yourselves really well educated. When will they make the decision? Now, every sales leader wants to know, when is it going to close? And every salesperson wants to know, when is it going to close? Why? Because that's how we get paid. That's really an unfortunate way to look at a deal, because what we really want to do is be very customer focused. But when we have so much pressure on us to close deals by certain dates, we don't always do our best selling. But we do need to know when they're going to make the decision. And if the salesperson can't answer that, then the deal is not going to move forward at a pace that's going to be acceptable to anyone, including the customer. So what you really need to know is, what's the timeline for implementation? Because if you know that, then you can help your customer understand by when they'll need to make that decision. So if you are constantly asking, when is it going to close? That's the wrong question. Back up from implementation. See, we're not in charge of the close date. The customer is. They get to tell us, or so we think. But how a salesperson or a sales team gets back in charge of the close date is by understanding implementation. So if you know that they need something implemented by a certain date, everything else becomes easier, because you start with that date and you back up from there. And you lay out all the steps that are going to be needed to be taken and completed in order to get the implementation done on the date they want, so that everyone's happy. That's how you get back in charge of the close date. So you've got to know when they're going to make the decision, and you've got to know their timeline for implementing. And then, what action did they commit to? When you have a hard time getting people to commit to a next action, you know the deal is going to be stalled. So it's very important for salespeople to ask that question and write it down, and have everybody agree to the next steps, the next actions, right? So what actions did they commit to is the question you want to ask, and what are the next steps? If the salesperson can't tell you the next step and the date of the next step, that deal is going to be stalled. Something that my clients always hear me say: close dates come from customers, not quotas. But we can know the close date if we ask those questions that I just presented to you. So how will your salespeople get positioned to close the deal? What are you going to help them do? Who do they need to know, and how are they going to meet them? This is why the days of the lone wolf seller are gone. In order to close these complex deals, your salespeople need help. They may not be able to meet all of the people. They may need subject matter experts. They may need senior level executives. They may need you, the sales leader. So this is something that you have to plan together. They need to know the answer to this. Who do they need to know, and how are they going to meet them? And if it's not them that's going to meet them, who from your company is going to do it? So it's your turn again. From the things that we just discussed here, what will you commit to do? Please chat that in. What will you commit to do? So now we have time for some questions. If you would please chat those in, I will answer as many as I can. But if I don't get to answer all of them, please connect with me, especially on LinkedIn, and tell me that you heard me here on the Ring DNA Selling Forward Summit. And I will accept your connection request and answer your questions. And of course, share anything in any way that I can help you with. So please chat your questions in, and I will answer as many as I can.
So thank you so much, Alice. That was fantastic.
Great. Can you hear me okay? I just turned everything down.
Sure can. Absolutely.
Good. Someone was asking where they could find the download.
Yep,
So,
we'll go ahead and email that out to everybody tomorrow. We had some issues with the platform, so don't worry about it. You will get it emailed. Yep.
Okay, great. Well, that's no problem then. I just wanted to make sure. So we're going to email that out. So let's see. Are there any other questions coming in?
We have some questions here. So we'll start from the beginning and kind of move forward with how they were brought in. You mentioned being aware of the emotions of your team, certainly emotions of the prospect. Maybe your team you're thinking a little bit less of than the prospect. But how do you judge the amount of empathy to use when you are on a prospecting call? And then how do you react to that?
Yeah, I think it's hard any time to read another person's emotions. It's something we need to practice and get good at. So if they're on the video and you can see them and they're smiling and such, you know, then you can read it. But some people have what we call resting business face. And so if they have that, it's a little bit hard to tell. But the best way to really tell whether it's a teammate or whether it's a client is to simply ask some questions and see how they respond. If they're a quiet person anyway, their answers may be sort of short. But if you can ask them a question and then they say something like, tell me more, is there anything else? And if you can get them engaged in the conversation, then you can start to read their emotions better. Even if you're just on the phone, because you'll hear in their voice, like if I'm not smiling and I'm talking, you can totally tell whether I'm on the phone, even though you can see my face right now. But when I'm smiling, it's a little bit more energetic and you can hear it. So we just have to get good at reading that. And the best way is if they're doing the talking, we can listen for the tone and the quality. And if we can see them, of course, that helps as well. But we have to tune in and we have to get good at it.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. Great. And resting business face. I've not heard that term. That's good.
I have to give credit to my friend Julie Hansen for that one. I'm not sure where she got it from, but she teaches how to have great meetings and how to do presentations on video, and that's what she says. And you know, it's better than the other B word.
Yeah, I like that. Are we still seeing for the next question, are we still seeing the same selling challenges as we were before the pandemic and they're just amplified, or are there some new challenges to address as well?
Well, we're definitely seeing the same challenges. There's no doubt in my mind. People's pipelines are not full enough. That happened before the pandemic. We still have pipelines that are not full enough. Nothing has changed there. I think that the things that have changed really are just that we have heightened emotions to deal with. We have more fear. People are being laid off, you know, from their jobs. And so that adds into things. I'm going to have a client who's been, you know, had a deal that was just about to close. And then the people that were involved in that deal, all of them, their whole department was laid off. So I think that is really tough, but those kinds of things happen. They were happening before, maybe just happening a little more frequently. So what do we have to do then? We have to tune in, we have to pay attention, we have to read. We should be very current on everything that's going on with our customers so that we know if they've laid people off and we can comment on that. And we should be aware of what's going on in their industry and maybe in the city where their business is. I have clients in Minneapolis, so I've been very aware, because everyone's been hit hard, but that especially. So I think it's different, but it should have been this way the whole time. You have to be a student of your customer, a student of your industry, a student of what's going on in the world today. So you can be smart, you can make good decisions, you can have conversations that really matter to people.
Yeah, that's really good insight. One of the challenges that you mentioned earlier was with the new complication of internal communication and getting a deal processed from the inside, since you can no longer huddle around an SE's desk or go address a CSM team with a quick question. People aren't, maybe they're more at your fingertips, maybe they're not. How do you address that right now?
Well, I think that that's a great question. I think some people feel like they're more at your fingertips, but I'm not sure that they are.
Yeah.
With your own internal team, there's a lot going on as well. So you do have to stay in tune with them and work with them to get things done. With the deputy that I mentioned, your own company may have a deputy now as well. So that adds a component you hadn't dealt with in the past. Maybe you've always dealt with contracts and legal and some of the subject matter experts and other things that you had to do to get a deal closed. But now there's also this other person who's kind of looking over and managing the change and managing the budget and expenses in a different way, because almost every CEO I know has had to reforecast in some way. Most have had to decrease their forecasts, but some have had to increase. But still, that means if they're increasing, there's so much going on that can be problematic as well. So I think we have to go to the leaders of our companies and say, how do we get things done efficiently? How are we going to make these deals happen quickly for our customers who need them to happen quickly? And how do we make sure that we don't have our own sales prevention department going on at our company?
Yeah. I have heard that term. I once was hired for a job, and the first day they told me, well, we're dubbed the sales prevention department by sales. So we got that going for us. I'm like, all right, that's going to be tough. It looks like we're almost on time, but we have another question, and we'll leave it with this one. You spoke a lot about how to, as a leader, talk with your sales rep, or maybe even for the reps who are on the call, how to relay information about their deals more effectively to either give or receive better coaching on how to close it. I know we just grew our sales teams, and there's always, how do we learn faster in this environment? How do you track those questions? Do you ask them all for every deal every week? How do you report on them? Is there some efficiency there you can give us?
Only if you want to drive everyone crazy should you ask all of those questions every time you talk to someone. So a good sales process, internal sales process, will include a sales leader coaching a salesperson through a sale, or a peer coaching through a sale. Now, in many, many cases, this coaching is not going on. I see it all the time in the companies that I work with, and the salespeople that I ask, the sales leaders that I ask, how much coaching is going on at your company on these deals. And usually the salesperson's working on it, and maybe they've got one or two other people involved and they're talking, but at large, they're not receiving the coaching on how to close that deal. So I think that what we can do for ourselves is just ask ourselves this question. So we get off a call with a customer and we run through our list and see how much more information we've collected, and we see what's still missing. So we can coach ourselves in that way. We can ask a peer, by somebody who's not involved with the deal, explaining the deal and asking them, to poke holes in it, or ask us some questions, or give us some coaching on what we could do. And for sales leaders, certainly you can't coach every single deal, nor should you need to, because salespeople know how to do their jobs. But if you're coaching some of the higher profile deals, some that have much larger dollar figures than others, or just have a brand name attached to them that we definitely want to capture, right? Then you should sit down with the sales team that is working on that deal, map it out with them and have check-in points. It's just like project management. You'd have check-in points to see where are we now, what has happened, and you use the appropriate questions at the appropriate time. By this time in the sale, we should know these things. Do we know them? Let's check. If we don't, then let's go back and get more information or figure out how we can confirm the information that we do have. So leaders have to make time to coach. CEOs should be making time to coach their senior leaders. Their senior leaders should make sure they have time to coach the people that report to them. Sales leaders need to be coached and they need to be coaching. So if we can spend more time and focus on this, then we have the time to ask those questions and make sure that we are not poorly positioned, that we are well positioned and we can close the deal.
Fantastic. Well, that's our time. Thank you for that awesome, actionable insight that hopefully we all can improve from just this short 30-minute time frame we had today with Alice. So thank you, Alice. Appreciate that, and thank you everybody for joining.